Hello, everyone. It's Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby, and I am here with Jonathan Groff, the executive producer and star of the new documentary Spring Awakening, Those You've Known, which follows a reunion concert, a very special reunion concert of Spring Awakening 15 years later. And I was very obsessed with this musical, but did not get to see the concert in person. So I'm glad this documentary exists. Where did this idea to document the reunion come from?
Well, the reunion started, Lauren Pritchard, who plays Ilsa in Spring Awakening, contacted all of us on the text chain. We've stayed in touch these last 15 years. And she wanted us to do a 15-year anniversary concert. She really wanted to do it for a charity. And the Actors Fund, now the new name is the Entertainment Community Fund, took care of us in the entertainment community all through the pandemic. And at the time of spring, it's now slightly more, but at the time of the Spring Awakening concert, they had donated over $24 million in just the year and a half since the pandemic had started. So this organization had saved our community during COVID. So we wanted to do this concert for them. We selfishly wanted to come back and do our show again. Everybody's schedules were wide open because of COVID. I don't think this concert would have happened without the pandemic happening when it did. And then as the months wore on and we were getting closer, it was feeling like kind of a miracle that we were getting everybody together. And this sort of idea for the documentary happened at the Emmy Awards last year. Hamilton was up for a bunch of Emmys and won an Emmy. And the cast and I and some of the guys, Dave Cerulnik and John Kamen from Radical Media, were in the interview thing after you win the Emmy and you go through all the different interviews. And Dave and John were like, Groff, what are you up to now? And I told them about this concert and that we were having a little trouble pulling it together and raising the money so that we would be able to do it as a benefit. And I kind of had this dream of recording it and documenting it in some way. And so then a week later, we had a meeting with Radical. They got on board. HBO came on board and funded the entire thing. I knew Casey Bloys from doing Looking on HBO back in the day. So I reached out to him to see if he was interested in really it was for Spring Awakening, but it was also in support of the Entertainment Community Fund. Everybody was coming at this in a very beautifully charitable way. And so that was sort of how it started. The documentary, I mean, we recorded the performance with 7 cameras. The documentary, they shot in 5 days. And they made magic. The folks at Radical and Michael John Warren, the director, and Josh Pearson, our editor, who edited Summer of Soul, they just they had no time to do anything, and they made something so beautiful. And we're so happy that it exists. It's such a gift to the cast and to the show itself. We're so proud of it.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible to have every single person back, because I think this show is such a unique performance experience with Spring Awakening, because it's a cast full of, you were all teenagers at the time, bonding in these very formative years. So what was it like stepping back into a rehearsal studio with everyone? Did dynamics just immediately fall in place again?
It was, yes, they did fall like it's sort of I imagine a high school reunion, in that some things never change between, it's the same jokes, or everything comes flying back. We were so young, and it was really healing, actually, to come back together. And when I was pitching the doc to Radical, I was talking about how the universality of the experience, I think that most people have, and probably Sam, you did during college, as you were telling me about being at Emerson and going to see Spring Awakening.
Many times.
10 times, yeah. That when you're in college, or when you're in your late teens or early 20s, and you're in an intense experience, whether it be a theater experience or a college experience, and you're not quite who you are yet, but you're sort of still figuring it out, and you're kind of like bumping against each other and hurting each other and loving each other and laughing with each other and fighting with each other. And we as a group did all of that, but we did it in this very unique, specific experience of this Broadway show. And so coming back together was like the most kind of healing and beautiful reunion. And then to be doing the material, I mean, when you think of like songs that you listen to in high school and how they make you feel something, we sang this music 8 times a week for 2 years. And so this music is so important to us and brings up so much emotion for us. And so that week was just, I think you can feel it in the documentary. It was just completely overwhelming. And the audience that was there, this was the big surprise, was the audience was full of fans that were our age. I think of them as young fans, but everybody's like our age now in their mid 30s. And the audience was having the same experience that we were having, which kind of mirrored the experience back then, because we were all so young together, the actors and the audience, we kind of owned the material at the same time. So this experience of the cast reuniting and then the audience experienced the show again, it was a night in a theater that I'll never forget. It was, I think, the most kind of like explosive emotional night I've ever had in a theater.
Yeah, even watching just the documentary performance, it's very surprising the emotions that bubble up when you have that connection to it. And I was talking to Lilli Cooper earlier, not too long ago, for her new show, and she mentioned the documentary and was talking about how, like Mama Who Bore Me resonated so much in a such different way because everyone singing that is mother now.
Yeah.
Was there a moment for you where you really noticed like this dramatic shift in perspective that you had on a number?
Oh my God. I mean, basically the whole thing, even starting with my music rehearsal with Kim Grigsby, our music director. I had a private session with her before we started, and I started to sing this song that I sang called All That's Known. And we were singing it, and she stopped me in the beginning, and she's like, Jonathan, you're singing it like you sang it when you were 20 years old, but you're like holding on to so much you're holding on to so much, like you're so tight, but I know this is not how you sing. You have to open it up. And I was like, oh, right, okay. And I would sing like, but I know there's so much more to find. And I sang and I opened it and I just started hysterically crying, which is not a surprise because I cried through the entire documentary. But I started singing and I opened up and I started crying, and I realized, I mean, I talk about this in the documentary, but I was in the closet all throughout Spring Awakening, and I wasn't quite who I was yet, and I was figuring things out. And I know I was holding on to so much back then. And so even in the physical articulation of singing, coming back to it, in that simple just act of singing the songs, I was like opening up and unblocking all the stuff that I had been holding on to 15 years before. So even in just performing the show, it was like an exorcism of so many emotions, good and challenging emotions. And then I would say, like, perspective, adult looking back, the one that really got me was the word of your body. Oh, I'm going to be wounded. Oh, you're going to be my wound. Oh, I'm going to bruise you. Oh, you're going to be my bruise. That lyric in particular, having been wounded and bruised since then, over the last 15 years, and the sort of brilliance of the lyrics that we were singing them, we knew they were great, but as an adult to look back and you look at something as poetic as that, and that the way that Stephen Sater articulates this sort of ache of desire and pain that happens at the same time when you're that age, and you're not understanding what the pain is about, but you come to learn what it is about, really just landed with me. And getting that experience with Lea again, and our entire relationship that we had and have had since then, getting to sing with her. And I mean, we kind of joked that we would never be able to act together again, because now we can't take each other seriously. We just laugh every time we try to even really kind of be serious in acting in any way. But then we got there and we were like so locked in, and went right back to on stage our lives, you know, and what that was about. And also just interpersonally, it really reconnected the whole cast in a really profound way.
It's really nice watching, you know, the both of you walk through your relationship and how strong that is. And I'm curious, have you ever met anyone else who has done a sleepover at their Broadway theater before, other than you all?
No, I actually no, I have, because I remember, so not at that point. At that point, that was like, we totally thought that up. Our young brains thought it would be cool to do that. And they did it in Hair. Like a couple of years later, I remember, because I did I did a production of Hair in Central Park, actually right after I left Spring Awakening. And that show transferred to Broadway. I didn't transfer with it, but I was still very close to everybody that was in it. And they slept over in the theater as a cast, and like painted their theater and did a kind of a whole like hippie situation. That's the only other time I've heard of that.
Well, you started the trend then. You're one of the
He
very
did.
few.
And appropriate, because in so many ways, Spring Awakening exists because of the show Hair, because Hair was so form bending. So there's a good exchange of energy there that the cast of Spring Awakening and the cast of Hair stayed over in their theaters.
Yeah, it's kind of, there's a lot in the documentary where they're talking about, there's a lot of pushback because the show deals with not just sexuality, but sexuality of teens. Can you imagine like a show like Spring Awakening being made today? It feels like so many hoops would have to be jumped through.
You're totally right. I don't know. I really don't know the answer to that. And I feel really lucky that this show existed at that time in my life, and for all of us, and even for generations after us. And even like when I go and see it at a community theater or at a college, being able to express yourself sexually and emotionally in this way at that age is, and was for me specifically, life-changing. And Spring Awakening has been controversial, will always be controversial, was banned for 70 years when it was first written in 1891. And I think because there is an uncomfortability about young kids and sexuality, and watching them express that, allowing them to express that. And this show is a lifesaver. I mean, Lauren says at the end of the documentary, the issues that we bring up in this show are things that they don't teach you in school. And these, talking about these issues and airing these issues literally saves lives. And I think the show, like, it was kind of was a miracle, as we talk about in the doc, that it was made in 2007. And there was a moment in the early 2000s when it was supposed to be made, and then 9/11 happened and they had to keep delaying it because people weren't ready to look at subject matter like that. And it just came at this very specific sweet spot, and I think we're all the better for it.
Another thing that happened with this show is that you all stormed the Tonys that season, and right now you were all mostly first-time nominees. There are a bunch of kids at the Tonys, and now we're in Tonys, and this season has a lot of first-time nominees in it. Since you've gone through the whirlwind, what advice would you give to people who are dealing with their first experience with that?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. I remember two big takeaways that I had from those Tonys. The first one was the revelation that the Tonys are a commercial for you to sell your show. So as much as it is a celebration, it's actually beautifully a continuation of work. It's a way to get the word out about your show. It is a way to promote your show. It is a way to, it's tough to have a Broadway hit. It's kind of impossible. And the Tonys are a gift, and we're a gift to us during Spring Awakening, because it's like somehow anointed as worthy of seeing, and it becomes a spotlight gets put on your show in a national and in a certain way, like a global sense. And so taking that opportunity to spread the word about your show was a surprising. I thought the Tony Awards were just like a cool award ceremony, but I realized, oh no, this is a commercial. That was the first thing. So I would say, like, taking every opportunity you can to continue your run by spreading the news about your show. And then the second thing I remember is sitting in the audience, feeling like I was at a party. I was so excited that we were just so shocked to be nominated for 11 Tonys. And I remember all of the grown-ups around me from all the other shows literally I won't name names, literally shaking with nerves, and like kind of hi, kind of not present. And I mean, I was 22 years old, but I remember thinking to myself, I never want to take this so seriously that I'm not enjoying this moment. I was surrounded by people full of anxiety and full of nerves, and like not enjoying the celebration part of the Tony Awards. And so I made a little promise to myself. My 22-year-old self made a promise to myself that if I was ever back again, I wouldn't allow myself to take it that seriously. And it's truly just an honor to be there.
Well, I wanted to ask you before we have to go, towards the end of the documentary, Michael Mayer sort of says, I wanted to do this because it was an opportunity to see who these kids have become. And what, in terms of looking at who you've become now, what part of yourself do you like really trace back to that Spring Awakening experience?
Oh, in terms of who I've become now, what part of myself? I think, I came from Lancaster, PA, and my family is not in the industry in any way. And I found myself in New York. I think I was 20 actually when I got cast in the show. I was. And there was this passion for what we do that got me there to that moment, and that has been a through line through my life up in 37 now. Still to this moment, I still care so much about what we do. And it was a fire within me when I was in high school, and experiences like Spring Awakening and success, the luck of success at a young age, allowed me to deepen that passion. And that's like, I guess, like the same, if I can like pick one thing that is the same from then and now, it's that I still really care a lot about what we do. And I would say I'm even more passionate now than ever. And especially with this documentary, how like what Michael said, like how Michael, Tom, and Ira, and Duncan, and Steven, and Kim, and that whole creative team really allowed us to soar. And what it kind of awakened in me is, how are we doing this for the generation behind us? And one of the real mission statements for me of the documentary was, I want high school and college kids to see this documentary, and I want them to pursue their crazy idea, because there's so many reasons why Spring Awakening wouldn't exist, but it was a creative team of adults and a lot of passionate young kids, and they just went with their crazy idea. They led with their passion, they led with their heart, and it worked out, and they made something that 15 years later still has a big ripple effect. And so that is what my sort of like dream is of this documentary affecting the next generation, because Spring Awakening was around before the social media age. So we wanted to make something that really shined a light on the risk-taking power of artists and artistry, and how if you really do take those artistic risks, it can blossom into something really beautiful that people are still talking about 15 years later.
Well, thank you so much for bringing us this documentary. I'm very glad that it exists for everyone to check out. So go check out this movie. It's great. Jonathan, thank you so much for sitting down with me.
Thank you. Thanks, Sam.